So I'll start off by saying that I know a lot of the things that I'm going to be discussing in this particular video is going to have a lot of, I don't even want to say judgment, because I don't even think the people who would criticize anyone in the situation of um, job hunting or house hunting to be something to make fun of, because it can happen to anyone. Um, so I don't even want to say judgment, because I don't think they're making any rational judgments to have that kind of character. But I guess making fun of, picking on, ridiculing, deriding, um, I don't even know what it could be. But to address those assholes, firstly, people who look down on or turn the cheek to working class individuals and slightly middle class individuals who need to make a living. For anyone who looks down on them, none of this is probably going to mean anything to them, because there's always that asshole in the crowd who's going to scream, get a job, get a this, get a that, oh well, move on, that's life, blah, blah, blah. So for all the people who are saying get a job, the only thing, you can't get a job. They're not just hanging around and you just get a job. Getting means like pretty much taking. You can't get a job. You have to apply to a job, and then you just wait. There's nothing else you can do. Some of them even disqualify you if you call up to ask about the status, if you can even find a way to call up about the status. The most companies make you apply online, and that application software is oftentimes administered or monitored or headquartered overseas or just in a different location. And they aren't customer facing. So there's no way that you can communicate with them. There's just nothing you can do. You just send your information out and that's it. You wait. Sometimes you wait forever. Who knows? And it's not like a waiting list. You're just waiting on the motherfucker to give a shit that you applied. That's literally what it is. And so now people might make fun of people who are employees. They might look down on employees and they want everyone to be an entrepreneur. More than half of these entrepreneurs are scammers, they're schemers. That is just the truth. More than half of these entrepreneurs. Because if you're doing a legitimate business and you're an entrepreneur, that means that you're kind of doing it on your own and you're starting from the ground up. Who the hell is on average able to just start a business from the ground up and it succeeds right away? You clearly did something nefarious, illegal, cut corners, irresponsible, or you're just in a very lucky position to get an investor or to be from a wealthy or socially connected family who will help you start up your business. And even those motherfuckers struggle with starting a successful business, because really businesses don't sell themselves either. You can have your own business and you're not succeeding. So you still need money too. And the issue here is that there's very few ways for you to earn money and you're not breaking the law or doing something unethical or immoral, because money is unethical and immoral. Paper currency is unethical and immoral. It's very unnecessary. It's the reason why everyone does more than half of the evil that they do. Things used to be really simple. Most of the world, especially in brown, black, and yellow regions, and especially pre-colonialism, they bartered. So that would mean a family, a tribe, whoever they are, or a person would have like a trolley or like a wheelbarrow, or maybe like a banana leaf basket that they weaved themselves full of like 100 potatoes. And they have an ox. right? And so they're wandering. They're like, I'm really thirsty. I want something else to eat. And then they stumble across another family, tribe, or person. And they have access to like a river and a bunch of fruits and vegetables. And so they say, hey, we'll give you, a piece of our ox and a couple of potatoes if you, and like a couple banana leaves to weave and make a shelter or whatever. If you give us like 5 fruits and vegetables and let us get some water. And so they'll be like, okay, cool. And then that's it. And then the way that they get these natural resources is just they just woke up and these natural resources were there. Clearly, this is not a failed system because this is what humanity regularly did up until even just about 100 years ago when globalization of capitalism and paper currency really started. And the human race is thousands of years old, maybe dozens of thousands of years old. And only 100 years ago, we've had to make paper currency to do the same thing, to get water, to get food, to get sustenance, nutrition. You have to hand someone money, and then this person takes the money, and it doesn't go into their pocket. It goes into the company's pocket because they're just an employee, and then they take home 0.000000008% of this company's profit that they earned them, and they have to wait a week or 2 weeks for their paycheck. And you want to look down on people, many of whom did not choose this because they were forced, or their ancestors were forcibly brought here, or they had to flee and come to this place where paper currency is everything. And you want to look down on people who don't have a lot of paper currency when paper currency is controlled by a system of people that excludes intentionally a lot of people from being able to even earn paper currency. So you think that it's their fault or that it's funny if they can't get paper currency. And then it's not even a racial thing because the people who created this paper currency system, a lot of them have homelessness numbers and unemployment numbers and suicide numbers and crime numbers and single parent numbers that are skyrocketing. So the system is failing everyone, this whole paper currency bullshit. But now that we're on the subject of paper currency, this is a video about all the bullshit that people go through when they're looking for opportunities to make paper currency or between jobs, job seeking. And this is just a few of the things that makes it harder for people to get a job. Just to apply to the son of a bitch. Just to apply to the son of a bitch. Or just in a conversation with a recruiter, you lose that opportunity because of stupid, arbitrary, perpetual things, reactionary methods to recruit, to have people apply, to interview. And this is all just a matter of communication and literacy and organization. And apparently, many recruiters don't have that. And most people, whether the job is low hanging fruit or I guess, desired job, I'm not even sure what people desire these days other than to go viral on TikTok or to be really popular on OnlyFans. I'm not quite sure what people desire anymore. But I would assume that the job that people desire now, it doesn't matter what kind of job it is. It's just as long as it can qualify them for a basic ass apartment. And apartments are typically over $1,500 a month, but even $900 a month apartments typically require you to make three times that amount in your income, which means you at least need to make $2,700 a month, which means that you need to make at least over 16 dollars an hour, and your hours need to be 40 hours a week. Then you can qualify for a basic ass $900 apartment. Yet lately, jobs seem to typically be offering $15 to $20 an hour. It doesn't matter what kind of job. It could even be requiring a bachelor's degree or a significant amount of experience, or maybe a certification here or there. Trust me, I apply all day, every day. I have applied all day, every day in the recent past. And this is typically the uh, pay that is being offered, $15 to $20 an hour. Uh, if I ever see anything higher than that, it's either a scam, like it's clearly a fake. Well, it's not fake because you can see it. It's real, but the job isn't real. Um, and or it's just something that most of us would have to filter out of our job search. Most people are going for low hanging fruit, even if they're highly qualified individuals or highly experienced individuals, even if they're not desperate. But some people are just unambitious, and they'll have a bachelor's degree and somehow be working in retail, not even in like HR. But I've seen it before. I've known people with master's degrees who are working at IHOP and warehouses. And this has always been a slow kind of burn. It's always been on simmer, these issues. But a lot of things happen in this country that make these issues more aware, um, and more common. So I would say back then, like just a few years ago, like a little bit before COVID lockdown, there were people with master's degrees and just high level of degrees and many specifications, the licensure certifications that were applying for low hanging fruit because that's what they thought was easy. So unambitious people created a standard of hiring overqualified people for certain jobs, especially if they're hiring them externally, yet promoting unqualified people internally. So it's backwards. It's like you should internally hire people who have proven themselves and who have the educational qualifications and et cetera, et cetera. But I know a lot of people who just kind of work their way up with a high school diploma and nothing else. And then you wonder why. You might have an incorrect paycheck or just a shitty manager or whatever it is. They should internally promote people who are qualified, not just who you like and who's been working there a long time. You need to internally promote people who have many different qualifications. And you need to externally hire entry level people. That's the only way you're going to clean up the workforce. They're hiring people externally who are unqualified for the role, whether they're overqualified or underqualified. And it makes no sense. And then it pisses off the people who have been working there the whole time. And so now you're going to get turnover from them. So now you have a bunch of disgruntled people without that much experience, education, or whatever it is, re-entering the workforce. And then, there might just be massive layoffs, and you'll still get the same people, disgruntled and uh, uneducated or inexperienced enough. Maybe they had a premature exit from the company because of internal issues in the workplace, and now they're rejoining the workforce, and they find themselves between homes and or between jobs. And so they apply for low-hanging fruit as disgruntled, uneducated, unskilled, inexperienced people, rightfully so, will apply for jobs that others might not want to do. And then you find that regardless of the education of these people, the workforce is full of just hiring people for $15 to $20 an hour, quite typically. And most people are not going to be able to afford hotels, yet most people also can't qualify for apartments. So the only option that they have is to sleep on the streets or sleep with strangers. That's literally it. There's really no other, or move back in with family, and that might be a toxic or abusive situation. Like if your family is alive, they might have contributed to a lot of your issues. Now you have to go back to them, and then you'll become homeless from that, and you'll be back in the situation again, maybe worse off now. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So that's one of the main reasons, just the price of things, the exploitative price of hotels that market themselves as lower. You might be lower than other hotels, but you're higher than the rent that's around. You're higher than what people can afford. Who's doing the math? Is anyone doing the math? The rent isn't that fucking high. It's not. The wages are low. Or they just need to stop telling people to have 3 times the rent and income. That makes no sense. There's no reason for it at all. Think about it. If you're desperate for employment, what are the jobs that you would get? You'd probably do cleaning or housekeeping or janitor, fast food, or warehouse. Just like easy jobs that anyone really can do unless they're severely disabled or something. But otherwise, a normal person would apply to those roles if they're desperate. So obviously, when you see something like a job posting for a cleaner, which understandably, it says you don't need any experience. It says right here, minimum qualifications, none. So it says none. That's what they put. They put none. And this is to be just a housekeeper for a campus. So why does it ask you for employment history and education? Why is it asking what certifications? And this shouldn't even be included in this application for this role, because what certifications and licenses does anyone need to qualify to just be a housekeeper? And this is another reason why there's so much homelessness and unemployment. And homelessness includes people who sofa surf, live in hotels, live with their parents, live with a partner, live with roommates, and your name is not on the paperwork or the lease owning that property or renting out that property. Or on the official documents, the initial documents, you're homeless too, because anything can happen to that relationship and you no longer can live there. Anything or any choice can be made in the owner's home that uproots you from being there, whether forcibly or you feel like you have just no choice. Even if you're a child or like a minor, and you're technically homeless too, if you live with your parents, because they can uproot you, they can give you away, they can leave you somewhere, they can leave and abandon you at the place and you can't stay there. They can bring someone in that endangers you and you feel like you can't go any there anymore. And guess what? There's really no choice. And the shitty situation is that if you leave, whether by choice or force or circumstance, you get in trouble. The parent doesn't necessarily get in trouble. Their way of getting in trouble is having you taken away. So now you're a homeless youth in the system because you were in danger at home. The parent doesn't lose their home. They may or may not actually go to jail. They very well just might take you away. So it's like you're getting in trouble for your parents' choices. So that's just how homeless you are. Anything can happen. Or maybe your parent dies or gets ill or develops some kind of addiction or something and just can't take care of you, even if they want to or whatever. I mean, you are homeless. There's a lot of homelessness in this country, specifically or in particular, because of a lot of factors. And this is one of them. You desperately apply to a job. It says that you don't need any qualifications, so technically this should be first come, first serve application. They also had a deadline. They say that the 9th is when the application will be taken down. So but they put it up on the 1st. So they're quickly recruiting for this role because how long is it going to take to vet for this kind of fucking role? And then they have the racist references requirement. References is not a standard, nor is it a requirement. It's not a standard because I apply to jobs all day, every day. I've had about 30 jobs in 5 years. I've left because of constructive discharge, or basically it's sabotage. So they don't want to fire you because they don't want to deal with unemployment payments and or investigations or a lawsuit. So they just make it unbearable for you or miserable for you or stressful for you to come in a loophole where it doesn't look illegal. And so you end up just quitting or just not showing back up, and then they can get you for attendance. Like, that's another reason why there's so much homelessness. People are losing their jobs willy-nilly because the company wants to treat people any kind of way that they want. And here you go again with references. This isn't a standard. I said the whole 30 jobs in 5 years because that's a lot of jobs that I applied to just to get those jobs. And then it's a lot of jobs to actually have. And I've probably applied to, honestly, maybe 10,000 jobs, like ever, maybe more than that, because I applied to about 100 jobs a day and between each job. And for the past few years, I mean, I've applied to thousands of jobs, or I've just come across applications. And I would say maybe 0.05% of applications I look at ask for references. And a large percentage of those they'd have a reference tab, but they won't have these red asterisks. Red asterisk means required. So it'll just be like a line like this. It's like you don't have to put it, that kind of thing. So we'll see what this job is actually doing. We'll see if they require you to fill this out. We'll see if they require you to fill this out. However, none of these should be here. So they're saying that employment history is required. I have loads of employment history, but I don't have any cleaner employment history. So who do they think is hopscotching from one housekeeper job to the next? Whoever is hopscotching from one housekeeper job to the next, fuck you. Fuck yourself to hell for not having any ambition to progress into something else. Like, if you were a housekeeper before, you should never want to be one again, or you should at least go into now being a housekeeper team lead or something like that. You don't hopscotch from the same level of work in the same role at different companies. Fuck you. You stay in your company and you keep being a housekeeper, or you ascend in your company as a housekeeper, or you exit the company and you're not a housekeeper. Like, you don't just continually be a housekeeper. It's not a career, it's a job. So now they actually expect you to have housekeeper experience because someone perpetuated that housekeepers will just continue being housekeepers. Company to company to company to company. And um, keeping a lock on the housekeeper industry so that anyone who now, this is like a role that you're desperate for. So anyone who desperately needs to be a housekeeper cannot be a housekeeper. So now that's why there's so much homelessness, because homeless people can be housekeepers. I mean, I know you might think, how can you be a housekeeper? You don't even have a house. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know what skills they have. Even a homeless person can be a housekeeper, again, as long as they're not ridiculously disabled and or ridiculously uneducated. They could be a housekeeper and get themselves off the street. Because I don't think anyone in a job that's less publicly degrading would hire a homeless person. I think a job that is publicly degrading would hire a homeless person because homeless people publicly are degraded all day, every day. The housekeeper role is publicly degrading. You're cleaning up after people. People are going to judge you. Even if you don't care, they're going to judge you. Because at one point, housekeeper roles, cleaner roles, cook roles belonged to slaves. So no one really wants to be associated with that, I would think. But no, now you have people hopscotching from one housekeeper role to the next to the point where they feel like they need to vet only the people who have been a housekeeper before, even though it says that you don't need any fucking experience, whether at all or in housekeeping. It says it. Now all of a sudden you have to provide experience. What experience do you want? So this country has no safety net for people, no risk management, no preemptive strategies in place to ensure that qualified Americans, qualified citizens who find themselves now desperately between homes or between jobs, there's no safety net for them. There's just have housekeeper experience or you can't even be a housekeeper. Have dishwasher experience or you can't be a dishwasher. Meanwhile, if you look around at all the people who are housekeepers, they're just taking in anyone. You can't communicate with them. They don't speak English. They act like they don't speak English. How did they get the fucking job? How did they even get through the fucking application? The next issue are these voluntary quote disclosures. Some jobs you apply to will require you to answer all these things because of the way that the application software is set up, where they have red asterisks next to them. Your options may or may not, the options provided to you may or may not suffice. I never answer these because I don't doubt it, but I strongly question the EEOC requiring employers to report who applies to their jobs when they know that most people apply to jobs now against choice. I mean, they might be able to do it, so they shrug their shoulders and say, okay, fine, but they're normally forced to apply online. So, who is stopping me from applying to the job online in the privacy of my personal private dwelling on my own private personal device? Unless the website is a troll and you click apply to the job and then a screen pops up and says, are you black or are you a woman or are you this or are you that? And if you say yes, then it reloads by itself and then says, sorry, we can't hire you or there's no jobs, which I've literally never seen. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I've literally never seen that. That would be the only reason why the EEOC would still be asking or mandating for employers to report such bullshit. I also know that the EEOC does not typically or generally require employers with less than a certain amount of employees to report to them at all anyway, which I think is quite pathetic. It's like if you're going to ask employers to report statistics to preempt or address racism, which is what you're supposed to be doing, then you should make sure everyone does it. That's why the Chinese restaurant, Chipotle, these Mexican niche sort of jobs, these Asian niche sort of jobs, don't hire anyone else typically because they don't have to on paper. Just look it up. The EEOC does not require certain employers based on body size to report to them, which is more of a problem than asking certain employers to report to them. I mean, they're both problematic because one just doesn't make any sense and the other is literally just ignoring racism. I mean, drive across the country. Most of the businesses standing are small businesses, like most of them. Even if the industry or the chain is large with that company, most work sites and venues are small in size. So these people don't have to report. A lot of them might be franchises or just small businesses. They don't have to report. However, apparently they're not reporting who they hire. They're reporting who they interview. Or they're not even reporting who they interview. They're just reporting who applies to the job. Like, you can't stop me from applying to the job online. That makes no sense. Short. The EEOC is ass backwards. And that's not just going to screw over the people you think it's for, which is Black women. It's going to screw you over as well if you don't fit into the predominant demographic or the brand of a particular company that you're applying to, especially if they're not required to report to the EEOC what that demographic is. And even if they are required to report, what they're reporting is useless. It's just reporting who's applying to the job. And guess what? It's racism again, but they're disguising it as EEOC efforts and methods to prevent racism. But the EEOC is protecting racism because they're not actually addressing racism. They need to be just surveying the demographics of people hired. And they shouldn't do it annually because that's way too long of an amount of time with all this employee turnover. Because that's a whole lot of people who left the job for whatever reason within a year. Who cares what they've been doing in a year? They should report it regularly, like monthly. Or every time they hire someone, they should put that information over to the EEOC. I mean, if you're trying to combat racism, you're not supposed to just be lazy and ignore a whole company for a whole year. You should be on it all the time. I'm not saying that this is what I'm imploring them to do, but I'm just saying this is why there's a lot of racism. I mean, a lot of homelessness. It's because there's a lot of racism. Because there's no one checking them for racism. And so if you fill out this application, which is just modern racism, right? It's electronic racism. Because back then, when you applied for things in person, they don't have to ask you what your race is. They can see you. But now they can't see you in the privacy of your home, applying on your computer on the internet. So now they're like, wait, we still want to be racist. We're just doing it for the EEOC. But no, what we're really doing is saying no to people who don't fit into the demographic of the current employee body and or the brand of the company. Or you're just not enough of a tax credit. You know, you're, because really what happens when you're a tax credit, which would mean pretty much a minority in a minority group, a protected class minority group, or just a protected class, the government apparently gives them some kind of cookie points for doing it. And you just eventually just become a number. There's just a whole lot of things wrong. There's a whole lot of things wrong. And every time I see this fucking survey from the EEOC, whether it's a lie or it really is the EEOC, it pisses me off because I know that they're just asking for a certain type. Because, like I said, I'm applying to desperate jobs, like warehouse jobs and stuff. And not just the major warehouse, like, the major logistics companies and delivery companies, but just like warehouses. And I know that if I'm not a Mexican man or just a man, they're probably going to say no to me or just ignore my application. And so they're asking for a reason. They're not reporting it because how are they going to report that to the EEOC? And if they're reporting application by application by application by application, then that means that they can just, instead of reporting applications, they can just report employees who are actually hired. So just to report employee by employee by employee by employee. But they're not doing that because they know that they'll probably get fined or whatever the EEOC is going to do if they don't have the numbers that they need or whatever the EEOC is looking for or whatever it is. So instead, they're like, no, let's just be slick and let's try and be funny and sarcastic and let's just have them tell us their demographic on the application. Like, what sense does that make? The next issue, and why there's so much homelessness and why a lot of people can't even start work even if they apply, because all you can do is apply, and then it's the waiting game during the recruitment and onboarding experience, which has nothing to do with you. It's all on them. Trust me, I've been offered a lot of jobs and not been able to start or lost them before I even started, like officially started, because of them. This is just the truth. Like, I've had work from home jobs where I can't start because the equipment comes late or it's broken or something is missing. Like, that's not my fault. Or the login credentials don't work because they spelled my name wrong. I've seen it happen to other people. They hire like 30 people and the training class is full of people, and then within a couple days it's like 10 people. Because of them, I've seen it. I've sat through it. These people literally can't log in. They have to keep coming off mute and saying, hi, I can't log in. And then you see them just, now they have to struggle through it in our face because it's a group meeting. They might do a side room, but normally they'll just address it right there. And then they'll be like, share your screen and blah, 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 blah. And then you'll see them struggling, and then you'll never see them again. I've seen people be escorted, like virtually escorted out of like remote training classes because of this. And they'll be told, well, if you don't have your equipment, I'm sorry, but you can't start, and blah, blah, blah. It's just horrible. It's absolutely horrible. People move to a new apartment because they got a new job. They're on a camera with boxes because they just moved in because they got a new place from being offered this job. And now they don't have a job because the job failed them. So another thing that fucks everything up is not even just the onboarding, which is you went through the interview, you went through the background, you went through the interview, you got told yes, you got the offer, you went through the background check, you got your start date, you're here to start, and you can't start on orientation day, which is like day 0. Day 1 is once everyone is oriented. And this is in person or remote. This is just the workforce procedures. So sometimes I can't even get through the recruiting experience. And one of the examples is I get offered an interview and I have a fucktard recruiter. So this fucking recruiter offers me an interview. She says, oh, we're doing interviews on January 9th between 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Please pick the range. I mean, the time within that range that works for you. I said immediately, January 9th at 2:30 or 2 o'clock, one of those. And then like an hour or so later, it shouldn't even take an hour, but an hour or so later, she hits me back with, okay, perfect. I'll get you scheduled now. And then another message comes and it says, okay, we have you scheduled for January 7th at 1:30 a.m. Like, first of all, what? And then it's the wrong time zone. It's like, bitch, are you confused? I'm not even in that time zone. Like, what are you talking about? But either way, that's not the time that I said, and that's not the time that you said at first. Now it's January 7th because these recruiters, they don't care about you or filling the role. They a lot of the times are either independent contractors, because companies aren't always recruiting. So sometimes they're just independent contractors and they just do whatever they want. And then other times they are first party in-house recruiters, whether for a recruiting firm or the company itself. And now they have quotas. Now they have to do things a certain way. They can't do whatever they want. Now they're an employee and they have to meet goals. So your job is kind of like a sale, right? But if you know anything about sales, you might not get paid if the sale doesn't officially go through to completion, or if they cancel or quit or whatever, or don't like the quote, you know, or if they refund or whatever. But your metrics and your employment, they are fulfilled because you got someone to say yes at that time. Even if the sale doesn't complete, you might not get that commission payment, but you keep your job because you got someone to say yes. That's what recruiters are when they're employees, and sometimes independent contractors. That's what keeps their contract, I guess, going. Because if they just get you to agree to an interview, they don't care if the interview is miscommunicated, if they give you the wrong address, the wrong time, the wrong date, the wrong person you're meeting with, the wrong job title, the wrong pay, the wrong everything. They don't care. It doesn't matter, because who will get upset will be the company that they're representing, the client that they're representing. They might not even get upset because they might not even know. Who do you think, if you're on an interview and the person interviewing you for that company is asking you questions and like, oh, I didn't know that because the recruiter said, you think they're going to get mad at the recruiter or you? They're going to look at you and probably walk you out of there. And the recruiter keeps their job because guess what? They technically did their job by signing you up for an interview, even though it was incorrect. I've missed out on probably hundreds of jobs simply because of a bad recruiter or a bad onboarding experience. Simply because. And this is one of the examples. What the fuck do you mean January 7th at 1:30? So it doesn't matter if she gave me the wrong interview information. It just matters that she's proving that she's sending out interview invites. That's her keeping her job. So I have to be a bitch to come back to her. And obviously she's, at this point, no, I'm not going to do the interview because I don't know when I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. But she keeps her job because she scheduled an interview. And it's like, so I don't know if she's retarded or if she's just a cunt and baited and switched me. Because she was like, well, I know that no one's going to say yes to January 7th at 1:30 a.m. when I invited them on January 6th. No one's going to say yes to 1:30 a.m. There's also a blizzard going on, and I'll show probably footage of that. There's a literal blizzard. Like if you look on my screen, some of my screenshots, I have the toolbar at the bottom because it's a screenshot. You'll see that the weather says no. Right, with like a red alert symbol next to it, like you'll see it. So it's a blizzard happening now. And they should know this. And even if they don't, it doesn't matter if the weather was perfect. I said January 9th at 2 p.m. because that's what you said was one of my options. Now you're hitting me with what's either a mistake or the real time, but you knew I wouldn't say yes to that, and you were worried that that would impact your numbers. So that's what recruiters are doing. So you're at the mercy, your life is literally in the hands of a shitty recruiter who either is stupid and doesn't know what they're doing, or they know what they're doing, but they're being sly and nefarious and dishonest and duplicitous about it. The other issue is I get emails saying that I was offered the position, and then it says click here to view your offer. I click on view your offer, and the link isn't working. It just takes me back to my dashboard. So it's like, I don't think I'm even being trolled at this point. I just think that there's idiots working these important jobs and they don't care. Because again, they sent out an offer, so that looks like they did their job. but they're not doing it properly and they don't care. And there's no one holding them accountable. It's really fucking frustrating because this isn't funny to me. This isn't a joke. The same way that recruiters care so much about their job, I care about getting a job too.